Hey guys, you're very welcome back to Tutorial Tuesdays. Thank you so much for joining me once again. So what I want to talk about today a little bit is intentional songwriting, and I will explain what I mean by that. So today it's going to be more about subject matter, structures and lyrics. We're not going to be really doing much on melody today. I'm going to save that for another day. But this is, I suppose, to get more of an idea of how to structure a song. So these are your different song sections that you can have in your song. You have your intro, your verse, your pre-chorus, chorus, middle eight or bridge, and your outro. Now, a lot of the time your intro and your outro will be musical, not all the time, because there's so many different ways to structure a song, and you don't have to include all of these sections in your song either. Another thing I want to point out is sometimes the pre-chorus is referred to as the bridge, because that kind of confuses people. It confused me a lot for years. So if you are referring to the pre-chorus as the bridge, you would definitely call this section your middle eight, because it's totally different. So let's talk a little bit about the purpose of each of the sections of a song. So as we said before, our intro is generally musical. Not always, it can be different. So some songs start straight away with a verse, or they do a chorus first. It depends on the song really, but this is just kind of a general overview of it. So your intro, that's going to be whatever, how many bars long? 4, 8, whatever. In your verses, now you can have 2 verses in a whole song. You can have 4. You can have more. But in your verses, generally what you're doing is you're telling the story, because that's what songwriting is. It's storytelling. So in the verses, this is where you tell the story that you're trying to tell. It's where you give the details. So you're talking about maybe place names, pronouns. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later, about being specific and more intentional with your writing, with your story. So your pre-chorus is your little bit that's leading into the chorus. So it's literally, that's why it's often referred to as the bridge. So it's literally preparing the way for the chorus. Now, many would argue that your chorus is the most important part of the song, and I suppose I would agree with that, because in your chorus, you're summing up the main message of your song. So, for example, a lot of the time when I'm writing, not always, but one of the ways that I write is I will have an idea or a message or a particular topic that I want to write about, and I will flesh out the whole song around that particular idea. It's the core of the song. So I suppose that's what you're trying to say in your chorus. Your melody, I know we said we weren't talking about melody today, but your melody you would want to have the stronger melody in that. So if your melody was lower in the verses, you would probably maybe want to bring it up for the chorus, because you want that to stand out, because that's the most important part of your song. To give you an example of that, I'm just going to pick one of my songs. This is just the first one that comes to my head. It's my song Carousel. So in the melody in the verses, so it kind of moves in a little wave up and down, doesn't really go too high, and then the chorus is so I like to think about it as waves, you know, that you have one note and it's moving along, and sometimes it goes down, sometimes it goes up. Now, I will be getting more into that when we talk about melodies. So again, I'm going to use my song Carousel as an example. So in the verse, one of the verses, you were always just a dream, but the scars that you left me were real. You were never as you seemed, so often you're pretending. And then in the pre-chorus, the lyrics are round and round and round and round we go. And then it leads into the chorus, which is about we keep spinning in no direction. This is just like hell. I can't keep hoping, riding on this broken down carousel. So the whole idea of this song was based around, you know, going around and around in circles, never actually getting anywhere, keep on repeating the same mistakes, etc. So I suppose the pre-chorus, even though it's just round and round and round and round we go, that was leading into the idea I had about a carousel. which is an idea that came to me in the shower, where a lot of my ideas come to me. And actually I've heard that's pretty common with people getting struck by inspiration in there. Your middle 8 section is totally different to any other section that we've previously heard in the song. So what they taught us in BIM is that the middle 8 section is a different viewpoint. So that could be maybe, say if you had been writing from the point of one person, from the viewpoint of one person for the song up to this point, maybe you could change it to the viewpoint of somebody else. Or if you can continue to write it from your own perspective, but you can just maybe have a different opinion on it. You know what I mean? So like I'm going to stick with the example of Carousel in my middle 8, and I won't forget the tears and the pain, but I know this hasn't all been in vain. So I thought it was important to include that second line, that I know it hasn't all been in vain, because, you know, up to that point it had been about going around and round, but then when I brought in that line, it had said, well, at least you've learned something from it. Do you know, that kind of way? So that's what I generally try to do whenever I'm writing a song, is to think about the purpose of each of these sections. Now, a lot of songs don't even need to include a middle 8. Doesn't always have to be that way. A lot of songs don't even include a pre-chorus. You can do just verse and chorus. It really depends on the song, totally. So this is just like a basic guideline to how you could possibly write a song. So to talk a little bit more about writing with intention, what I mean by that is, and I touched on it previously, is you want to, I think it's important to know. Now, sometimes I don't know what I'm writing about. Sometimes I don't know where it's going. But I suppose it would be really helpful if you did know your main message that you were trying to sum up, or the main theme that you were trying to write about, even if it's blurry and it's vague, which a lot of the time for me it is. But if you have somewhat of an idea of where you're going, it does help. So then let's take the verses, for example. In the verses, this is where you give the details of the story, as I said before. So like, you can ask yourself questions: when, where, who. That's quite important. The pronouns, like, so are you writing, when you're writing your lyrics, do you say I, or do you say you, or she, or he? And then it might change in the middle 8 as well, but it's important. You want to have consistency in your song, so it does resonate more if it's coming from the same person, if it's I or she or he or it, whoever. Then your chorus, as we said, that's your main message. So whatever it is that you want to write about, whatever it is you're trying to say, you want to say it and make it clear in your chorus. Like I said with Carousel, I mentioned the carousel. That doesn't always happen. You don't always have to mention the title of your song in your chorus. I have a lot of songs that I don't mention that, but it's just the message of the song should appear in the chorus. Then, yeah, your middle 8 section. So, as I said to you before, this is where you give a different viewpoint, or maybe a different person's perspective or something like that. Just something different that we haven't heard before. The melody would also be different in that section as well. It would be different to something that we hadn't heard already in the song, usually. Sometimes what I like to do a lot of the time is, in the middle 8, I'll do like a variation of the pre-chorus. So either I'll change up the melody a little bit, or sometimes I'll even I might use the same lyrics, but just change them around a little bit, so it can be something that's slightly familiar, but it's presented differently. So the reason that I wanted to do this series, as I said, songwriting is my #1 passion. It is my favorite thing in the world to do. It's my favorite thing in the world to talk about. And one of the things that inspired me to do this little series is I love, and I've had this experience in workshops over the years, I love going into a group to do songwriting with lots of mixed abilities and levels, and people with different kinds of experience. And there might, like a lot of the time when I go into a group, there's a lot of people in there who have never done music before, who are not musical, and they have this kind of attitude that, no, I can't write a song. I couldn't do that. No way. And I absolutely love, at the end of the day, when they have come out with a song, whether it's in a group or they've come up with their own ideas for stuff, and I can show them, look, you can write a song, so it's, I get such joy out of seeing that. Something you could do this week, if you would like to write a song, is maybe think about something you'd like to write about and map out your song like this. You can use the spider diagram to start off with that I showed you last week, if you want to get... Yeah, before you do this, so I think I have it here still actually. Yeah. So you get your idea, and think about, so here you would put in who's telling the story, the details of the story, like when, where, who, my main message of the song. Say it was about relationships, say it was about, if you're writing a song about COVID, whatever it is you're writing about, flesh it out there, get some ideas. And then you could go, now you don't have to do that. I don't do this a lot of the time. My songwriting just kind of comes out. And then you would, you could write out intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, blah, blah, blah. And just write just a little brief idea of what you might like to say. Because again, we're talking about subject matter and lyrics at the moment, what you might like to say in each of these sections. Now, I don't always do this. Like if I'm planning to sit down and have a writing session, I will. If I know there's a few ideas bouncing around in my head and I just need to sit down and focus, I will. But a lot of the time, like my new single that's coming out soon, I'm so excited. It's called Almost, and that was one of those songs that just came pouring out, and I was like, whoa, Jesus, where'd you come from? And I wrote it really quickly, all just came together. It was just the two lines. I sat down with my guitar, and the first line was, I can barely bring myself to write this. And it just went whew. And it's the most amazing feeling in the world when that happens. Oh my God. So that is it from me for another week, guys. Thank you so much for joining me again. And if you have any comments or questions, leave it down below and I'll get back to you. And in the meantime, have a great week and I'll see you next time. Bye.